FOR3701 Forensic Methods and Techniques. I'm excited to explore this fascinating field with you and look forward to your active participation throughout the module. I'm Mr. Naika, fondly referred to as Colonel Naika by my peers. I bring to you 34 years of investigative experience from the dusty streets of townships to the high-stake corridors of corporate crime. For 26 years, I served in the South African Police Service, leading investigations into everything from petty theft to complex murder cases. These years taught me not only the science of investigation, but also the art of resilience, ethics, and service. For the past 10 years, I headed the internal investigation division at the university, where my team tackled complex cases of fraud and corruption. This module, FOR3701, is not just about learning investigative techniques. It's about developing the mindset of a professional investigator. You'll be challenged to think critically, act ethically, and approach each case with both analytical precision and human empathy. I look forward to sharing my experience and learning from your perspective and guiding you throughout the fascinating world of criminal investigation. Before I introduce our guest speaker, kindly drop any of your questions in the chat box. We'll make sure that you're answered during the Q&A at the end of the session. I would now like to welcome our subject matter expert, Warrant Officer Donovan van Rooyen. Donovan, before you begin your presentation, please give the class a brief introduction to Warrant Officer van Rooyen. Thanks. Over to you, Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Naika. Good evening again. I'm Warrant Officer van Rooyen. I'm employed by the South African Police Services. I'm currently based at Paul Detective Branch. Previously, I've worked in a number of units and also stations, 21 years experience in SAPS. I've worked in the local criminal record center as well as the forensic science laboratory as well as the detectives. So my focused area is cell phone investigations or the analysis thereof. So yeah, that's in brief.
Thanks, Warrant, for the short and dynamic introduction. You may begin with your presentation.
So our topic will be cell phone investigations, which we deal with crime investigation principles, namely the Lochner principle, which is applicable to cell phone investigations. So I'll start off by defining a criminal investigation. So criminal investigation is a step-by-step process of discovering, recording, and collecting of evidence, and also to carefully analyze this collected evidence for the purpose of establishing what happened, and we need to identify who is the responsible perpetrator or person that has committed this offense. So criminal investigation is founded on the most prominent principles in criminal investigation, which is our commonly and well-known principle, the Lockhart exchange principle, which was founded by a French scientist, Edmond Lockhart. So Lockhart was a French scientist, and he was one of the founding persons of forensic science, which incorporates the Lockhart exchange principle, founded in the early 1900s. So based on the principle, it is highly improbable for any criminal to commit a traceless crime, particularly when we consider the nature and the intensity of the crime in question. So the Lockhart principle is founded that, or Edmund Lockhart believed that when two objects come into contact with one another, there will be cross transfer of evidence that will occur. As such, Lockhart believed that every suspect, every victim, every witness can be connected to the scene of crime in one way or the other. This is where the Lockhart principle was founded, the Lockhart exchange principle. So in short, when we summarize, we usually say every context leaves a trace in short. So is that once a victim comes in contact with a suspect, there will be some of sort of trace evidence. Example, if I use a knife, when someone is stabbed, there will be a wound on the victim, so it means there's a trace of the knife. Similarly, so the blood from the victim will be then on the knife. So therefore, when two objects come into contact, there will be a trace of the one onto the other. So when we deal with the Lockhart exchange principle, if we look at from a cell phone investigative perspective, cell phone is at a crime scene, but the evidence are not left behind on that particular crime scene. So now we are faced with a situation that the Lockhart exchange principle is morely founded, it is applicable on physical evidence. So now we are sitting with a situation where a cell phone is used. It's part of the suspect took his cell phone with him to the crime scene. He made few calls with his accomplices during the commission of the crime. Now we are faced with the issue, how do we collect these cell phone signals or the calls that were made? So we were faced with a problem, and this is where the Lochner principle that was founded by Annie Lochner came into place. In 2006, the Lochner principle was established and registered as a patent. The principle was mainly designed or primarily designed to reveal the invisible technological traces that were left at a crime scene. So how do we make them visible? By mapping them through telecommunication techniques and to render on a scientifically and a technological basis as a technological service to examine the crime scene in with the aim of making these invisible traces visible. So as I said, it is commonplace that for a cell phone, the traces of a cell phone, the activity, the communication activity are present at a crime scene, but they are documented off-site and not particularly on that specific crime scene. So they are documented off-site as data at the mobile network operators, either their head offices or their regional offices, but it is recorded on their computer software programs. So it's important to understand what is the cellular concept. How does a cell phone operate? How does it work? So a cell phone is a two-way radio uh, which utilizes radio connections to wirelessly communicate with cell towers when phone calls are initiated or when it is received. So the phone call moves wirelessly from the cell phone antenna to a standard landline, telephone landline system. So for a cell phone to properly function, it requires two main types of radios, namely, which is classified as our transmitter and our receiver radios. So when we have a transmitter, we transmit communication and then we receive communication. So these two radios are built into a cell phone. So we need them in order to make or to receive phone calls. The cell phone must utilize both of these radios. As I said, one is to send communication and the other one is to receive communication. So the cellular network A cellular network is a wireless telephone system through which all cell phone users connect to a base station, which we usually refer to as a cell tower. All base stations, all base stations connect to the mobile switching center MSC through transmission lines. So cellular networks comprise of huge number of radio cells covering a specific and limited geographical area. So each radio cell is located with a particular cell ID, which is recording on your billing record, your statement, or your call detail records as we refer to them. So when a cell phone call is made, the call travels usually to the base station, which is closer to the handset, the caller, and then it's transferred to the receiver, which is then transferred to a landline system and to the receiver of the cell phone, the receiving cell phone. It is sent to the closest tower for that receiving cell phone, who will receive the
Donovan,
communication. Yes, Mr.
Donovan, just can hang 1 minute. I think the guy is putting them. Tankiso, is it a question?
Yes, sir.
How can I help you, Tankiso?
Yes, I was asking, since you reading from the notes and I see you changing on the display, where's are we going to get the notes, or I see
Okay,
you?
Tankiso, I think you joined a bit late. I mentioned that in the beginning, that as soon as the lecture is over, you can ask questions, and the slides will be shared. We're recording this presentation, and it'll be on my YouTube site, which will be shared with all the students. Okay.
Okay, thank you,
So
sir.
for the rest of the guys that joined in late, please take note that you can put in your questions on the chat, and we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. Thank you. Thanks, Donovan. Sorry to interject.
No problem, no problem. So this is just an illustration of the two radios that I'm spoken about, which is your transmitter. It transmits communication to our cellular network, and then it gets sent to our receiving end. So our receiving end will use the receiver to receive our communication. So in the cellular network, there are key components. We have a base transceiver station, which is a radio transceiver that is responsible for communicating with the cell phones wirelessly and to manage the transceiver equipment and perform channel assignments. We have the mobile switching center, the switching center for the network responsible for managing the communication within the network itself and interfaces with the public switch phone network. So the MSC should be a focus point for investigators as bulk of the evidence, the call records are stored there because it is the managing, it is the brain, it functions as the brain, it manages the communication. So the MSC contains two databases, namely our HLR and our VLR, which is the home location register and the visitors location register. So the HLR is an important database which collects and keeps valuable user data and service information for each individual. The VLR is a database that is used for cell phones roaming outside of their service area, and it captures the records and cell phone transactions. We have our mobile stations. It is used for making of the phone calls. So we have the cell phone record or call detail record or itemized billing. It is referred to in a number of ways. But what is important is what is depicted in the cell phone record or the call detail record. So it comprises of metadata fields which describe detailed communication entries. It will describe our mobile subscriber integrated service digital network. In short, it is our cell phone number. It is the cell phone number of the user will be recorded, It will also record the international mobile subscriber identity, which is a unique 15-digit number provided to the SIM card. So it's a unique number that is assigned to each and every SIM card that are produced. Then we have our international mobile equipment identity, which is a specific number that are allocated to each handset that are being produced. So each of them will have their own. In some devices we see we have two, especially the dual SIM card phones, they've got two IME numbers. The date and time of your call, when the call was initiated or whether it was received, the duration of the call that was initiated or received by the user or subscriber, and then the other party which received the call, as well as the cell phone tower, the cell ID and cell name which captured and which manages the call. The type of communication, whether it's a call, whether it's an SMS, originating or terminating. So we need to note that communication such as WhatsApp and emails, pictures and contact details that are being sent via WhatsApp, it is not displayed. So even our SMSs, the content thereof are not displayed, but we will have a transaction that is recorded stating that a SMS was received or either it was sent, but not the content thereof will not be captured in our call detail record or cell phone record. So once we use WhatsApp, it will be indicated as General Packet Radio System or GPRS, which shows internet use. So during my master studies, I have oh yes, yeah. During the master studies, I've developed operational steps for investigating officers to follow in order to obtain cell phone records. So the first step will be to obtain a cell phone number or an IME number against which you will apply for the obtaining of or the acquiring of cell phone records. So importantly for an investigating officer is that he or she must obtain information regarding a specific cell phone number, and the cell phone number needs to feature in the investigation prior to the application of the Section 205 application in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, Act number 51 of 1977. There should be a causal link between the cell phone number and the crime being investigated. So one must have a cell phone number before we can apply for a Section 205 application. We will invoke Section 205, the Criminal Procedure Act, as the legislation that will assist us in acquiring our cell phone records or call detail records. So it's important. Investigating officers should think out of the box, but it is important to stay within the boundaries of the law. If an accused person is known in the matter, the investigating officer may interview family members, spouses, or their partners, or even friends to obtain the accuser's cell number. If the accused is employed, the employer can also be interviewed to obtain contact details provided by the employee. A statement should be obtained from the person from which the contact details were obtained. So in instances of seizure of a cell phone, either from the crime scene or from the suspect, and where the IME number is unknown, the investigating officer should make use of the following function. So there is the function that can be utilized, be accessed freely in order to obtain the IME number of that particular handset. So step 2 will be, once we have acquired the cell phone number, or particular IME number that we want to apply the cell phone records against, our step 2 will then be to complete the Section 205 application in drafting of the investigating officer's affidavit. So important is we need to complete a Section 205 application citing the detailed request of our information required from our cellular network service providers. The investigating officers would then draft a detailed affidavit that will accompany the Section 205 application form, and the affidavit should indicate what prima facie evidence linked the suspect to the crime that are being investigated and why the cell phone records are needed in the investigation. So the detailed affidavit should include facts of the case, the particular charge under investigation, the seriousness of the offense, the address where the crime occurred, citing specific facts based on evidence collected, the cell phone numbers or the IME, and how it is linked to the investigation of the crime, the date and time range of the request, as well as the details of the investigating officer, as well as his contact details. So important is we need to note down that we are looking for records from this period of time until this period of time. So it must be specific range. So the investigating officer's affidavit is central in approving of the Section 205, since it outlines specific information for a magistrate to review and to use his or her own discretion to authorize the Section 205 subpoena in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, Act 51 of 1997. So additional affidavits of witnesses can also be attached. So one must remember, when you apply for a Section 205 application, it is basically a two-way approval system. So the investigating officer will submit his request with his affidavit to the prosecutor. In many cases, it will be the SPP, the Senior Public Prosecutor, where he or she will review the request. They will review the affidavit. Once they are in accordance with the investigating officer, they will recommend the request. They cannot approve, but they can only recommend. And then it gets sent to the magistrate for final approval before the subpoena are being authorized. So step 3 in our operational steps is that the application process at court. So no cellular service provider can provide cell phone records without obtaining prior approval and authorization of a Section 205 subpoena in terms of the CPA. So if you don't have a subpoena, they will not provide you with any information. So the Section 205 application, as I said, previously alluded, it's a two-way approval system that allows for the investigating officer to submit his 205 application, his statement, his case docket to the prosecutor for recommendation and for approval, his approval. The prosecutor ought to review the Section 205 application, and he or she will apply their minds in relation to the relaxing of the Bill of Rights of the person in question. So the person in question, from the cell phone number from whom we request cell phone records, still has a right to privacy. So the prosecutor needs to review and see whether it is indeed necessary for the relaxing of that particular right of that person. We're not taking it away. It is merely just to relax for a certain period. Once the prosecutor is satisfied, he or she will sign the application, and then it ought to be submitted to the magistrate or judge. Usually the senior magistrate or judge will review and confirm. So we will not give the application directly to the magistrate or the judge, but it will be sent to the clerks of the court, where they will register it, and then it will be placed before a magistrate or the judge. So after the prosecutor has signed the investigating order to submit it to the clerk of the court, as I said, and the clerk of court will then place it, will give the investigating officer a reference number under which the application is filed, and then it will be sent to the magistrate or judge to review and to authorize. Once the magistrate authorizes the Section 205 application or the subpoena, only then will it be in full operation. So step 4, after our magistrate is signed off, magistrate has agreed, and the magistrate has authorized our subpoena, now the next thing will be is to take a copy of the authorized Section 205 subpoena and hand it to the Technical Support Unit, as we currently know it as TSU, which form part of our Crime Intelligence Division. We will then, sir, Puna and liaise with our respective cell phone network service provider or providers. So the respective cell phone network providers will liaise with TSU and subsequently provide the requested cell phone records to them. So TSU will be as a liaising office between the networks and between the investigating officer. So TSU is then duty bound to communicate with the investigating officer and then to provide the requested cell phone records to them once they have received it back from the networks. So once we receive our communication from the network, we will obtain a list of abbreviations and explanations and terminology that are used in our detailed record or itemized billing. So we will have call type. A call type refers to the activity of the subscriber, whether a call was initiated, a call was received, a SMS sent, or an SMS received. So it's usually your call type, what type of communication was made or what communication transpired. So MOSMS refers to originating, meaning it was sent. It was initiated by the user or subscriber. Empty SMS is your terminating SMS, meaning you are the receiving part. MTC, it's mobile terminating call, meaning the person receiving an incoming call. It's the person on the other end who received the call. So MOC is your mobile originating call, which is the initiator, someone that initiates the call, who made the call. So okay, there's duplicate. CF, it is call forward, meaning that the original caller or receiver was not available, and then the call is forwarded to another number. GPRS is our general packet radio system, which usually refers to internet access. As I said, WhatsApp communication, email send, serving of the internet, so it is usually listed as GPRS. The MSISDN, which is our mobile subscriber integrated server digital network, which is our cell phone number. In short, it is our cell phone number. The IME, which is the unique serial number for the handset. It's our international mobile equipment identity. The call date, the date when the call was either made or received. The call time, it is the time frame when the call was made. The call duration, it is the seconds, the entire length of the communication. Other party refers to the receiving party. Cell ID, it is a reference code for your base station. Your cell phone tower has a unique identifying code, that is your cell ID. In the cell name, it is attached to the cell ID. For instance, if it is in Pretoria, the cell ID will be 0051 and the cell name will be Pretoria 1. So it is attached to the cell ID, the cell name. So this is a hypothetical cell phone record We just give you an indication of how the data will look once you receive it back from your network. So there we will have our cell phone number. We have IME, we have our SIM card number, we have our call date, we have our call time when it occurred, and what type of communication occurred, whether it was originating, whether it was terminating, and then we have our call duration, how long was the communication. We have our other party, is the party who received the information. So there we have our cell ID and the name attached to the cell ID or to our tower. So evidential value of cell phone records. We say cell phone records can determine, it can assist us in determining communication between parties involved, whether there is suspect to suspect communication, suspect to victim communication, or vice versa, victim to suspect communication. And then we can identify and link role players in syndicates, organized crime, because they usually give instructions via cell phones. They usually communicate the instructions. So we can make linkages between the various role players or accused. And then we can determine the duration of the call or messaging conversations, the date and times when it occurred. Then we can determine the relationship between the individuals, whether there was frequent communication. So frequent communication will tell us that there is a relationship. It's not a once-off call, that the parties had to know each other a little bit more because they have been communicating on a regular basis or frequent basis. And a cell phone record evidence can be mapped and used to corroborate or refute witnesses or suspects' accounts. For instance, if we look at the cell ID and a suspect gives us a version that he was in a particular area, and once we analyze his communication, we can either refute or corroborate to say that he was indeed in that particular area, or he was not in that particular area based on the geographical location of our cell ID, which manages and recorded the communication. We can demonstrate possible travel routes of a particular suspect to and from the crime scene based on cell tower locations. We can determine possible speed based on the call intervals combined with the cell tower data. In this sense is that if frequent calls are made on the N, let's say on the N1, the cell IDs or the geographical locations of the cell towers that manage the communications are on the N1. One can determine the width in which the cell towers are being distributed, whether he or she can use a vehicle or was the person walking. If a person was walking, then the time frames from one cell tower to the other will be far apart in time. But if it's very close, so one can determine that a vehicle was indeed used. So we can establish possible locations where the crimes were planned and organized. It is that we will find that if we have, let's say, 3 or 4 suspects that we have arrested, and once we analyze their communication, we will see that their communication or their cell phones being at a particular, it was at a particular area, so one can establish whether there is a possible location where they have planned and organized the crime spree. We can determine the geographical positioning or the location of the cell phone, whether the caller or the receiver, based on GPS location information of our cell phone combined with our cell phone data. Again, our cell ID, which gives us a determination of our location of our cell towers, which communicated, which manages our communication. We can place a suspect in a close vicinity of the crime scene in areas of interest. Note, we need to note that the precise location cannot be determined, but it can reduce our geographical area of interest. In practice, the locational data will be accurately captured and stored by a GPS instrument on the device. So when we look at our cell phone data, we will not be able to determine the precise location. So we can apply also for a SIM card profile. A SIM card profile provides us then all the IME numbers in which the SIM card was placed. Let's say the deceased cell phone, or it's in a robbery case, the cell phone was taken out of the victim's cell phone and it was placed in the suspect's cell phone and then placed into another cell phone and then placed into another cell phone. That particular SIM card will give us all of those IME numbers. The same occurs with the IME profile. Once the SIM card, once a SIM card are placed, or different SIM cards are placed in a cell phone, it records the SIM card numbers, or the numbers to the IME profile. So on that IME profile, we can view and see how many SIM cards was inserted into the handset and which SIM cards were inserted. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Naika.
Thank you, Donovan, for delivering such an insightful presentation. I'm certain that the students found this session highly engaging and leave with meaningful takeaways that will benefit their learning journey. I also like to welcome our General Eddie Nkoka, who's one of also a co-presenter, who will be taking the students through most probably the next week or the following week in the field of his expertise. Eddie, thanks for attending.
Thank you so much.
Students that attended, I hope you all received the presentation in the spirit that it was presented. I see no questions in the chat box. Is there any student want to ask a question? And we will take it from there. We have a few minutes of Donovan's time. Eddie, you have a question?
Thank you so much. Firstly, let me say thank you to Donovan for the interesting presentation. I take note that you get people who come from our continent, for example, one of the countries. They come with their gadgets this side, and then they use the SIM card from South Africa. So I'm not sure in terms of the IME, how do they deal with that? Thank you so much.
Donovan, did you get a gist of the question?
Yes, I've got it, Mr. Naika. Thank you.
Over to you.
Yes, so importantly so is that once we have a SIM card, look, in the beginning I said it is important for investigating officer to either have a IME or to have a SIM card number. So once we have a SIM card number, we can see what type, or not what type, but the handset that was used. So once we arrest the particular individual, the IME can be linked to the SIM card, so then it can be confirmed. If I'm answering the question, although they come with their own handset, their handset will still have an IME number which is registered to that particular device. So if we have a cell phone number that called a particular victim, and once we apply for a Section 205 on that particular victim, or on that particular cell phone number that contacted our victim, is that we're still going to receive an IME number to which it was to which the IME which is connected to that particular cell phone number.
Okay, thanks, Donovan. Eddie, is a follow-up?
Thank you so much. Just a follow-up. If they discard the gadget, what will be the next step? If before they could be arrested, they discard the gadget, and what will be the next step for us?
Yes, our communication is still there. So we're going to map the communication. Our communication, one must remember that cell phone evidence alone cannot prove a case. So it must be done in conjunction with other evidence. So cell phone evidence will still be there because it is recorded, it is managed, and it is recorded and stored by our network operators. So the evidence thereof will still be available to us. We can still analyze the evidence. We can still make links to, in fact, if we can prove that the cell phone number belonged to the person, then we can still prove the communication that this particular handset was in this particular area at the crime scene, as I said, in conjunction with other evidence. So cell phone evidence alone cannot prove a case beyond reasonable doubt. So therefore, we will still need to collect other evidences that support. So it is a more supporting type of evidence. Because the downloading of the cell phone does not fall under the ambit of Section 205 of the Criminal Procedure Act, because the downloading falls under the Cyber Crimes Act 19 of 2020, which came into effect of 1st December 2021. So if we want to download the handset, we have to follow another path in terms of legislation in order to download. Once we have the downloading mirror image of the cell phone or the content of the communication, one can link it to the transactions. Remember, I said that no transaction are recorded into our detailed billing, but it is only a transaction. Once we have the gadget, the device, and once the device is downloaded, now we can get the content of the communication. SMS was sent at, let's say, 3:15. It is recorded on our call detail record in our billing, and now we can link the content of the communication to the transaction.
Thanks, Donovan. Is there any other question from the students? Donovan, I think you did a fantastic job. The students are quite clear as to what you presented. And just a advice to the students, please read your study guides. When this presentation is made available to you guys, I think it's being recorded, and the guys that are already in the meeting, you all should have automatic access to it once it's posted in this Teams file. Look at it, and it will make a big difference in your exam between just passing and maybe getting a distinction. Thanks, colleagues. Thanks, Donovan. Thanks, students.
Sorry, Mr. Naika, before we leave.
Yes, Donovan.
The students can also review the article that I've published with my supervisors, Dr. Horn and Prof. Horn and Dr. Machete. It is called the Investigation of Serious and Violent Crime to the Analysis of Cell Phone Records. It's online on CRIMSA. It is volume 8.
Donovan?
28. Yes.
Do me a favor, send me that the article. I will upload it onto the student portal on the modules, so then all the students will have access to it, if you don't mind.
Will do so, Mr. Naika.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate
Thanks, students. Thanks, Donovan. I'll give you a call as soon as we drop this call.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Naika.
you.
Thank you.